Hello everyone. I see people are joining in, so let's wait for 2 minutes. Hi Sarangs.
Hi, Bhavik. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Good, going good.
We'll wait for 1 minute. If nobody joins, we'll start.
Okay.
Okay. I think let's give it a start. So yeah, so Rohi is joining in as well. Let me add him.
Okay.
It's good timing. Uh, I think he has joined in now. Yeah. Hi Rohi. I hope you can hear me, right?
Hello, yes.
Yes. Okay. So let's give it a start. So what we are going to do from now onwards is that we have looked into the brief of, let's say, the ANOVA technique, where we were supposed to, or the reason why we started looking into it is because we want to compare the populations which are not from a single source, it is from two different sources. Example given, let's say, if I'm trying to compare the height of men who are born in India as opposed to who are born in Africa. So in such kind of a statistical analysis is where we started looking into the ANOVA related things. But let's do a deviation, because what I could feel is that from long time we are only looking into the theoretical part with some things or some areas related to, let's say, Excel. But other than that, we have not really looked into any coding related aspects. So what I would like to do is that let's start with some coding. Yes, let's start with some coding, and then let's see how it goes. Okay, and then we will be coming back. So we will actually come back to our uh, 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 discussion on ANOVA, and there will be other things that I have actually deliberately skipped. I have not touched base, because if I only tell you the theory, there will be certain portions which you will not understand and which you are anyways not going to remember, because then it will become very difficult for you to grasp the concept. So we will be doing that as part of the hands-on. So let me do one thing. Let me share my screen, and I see one easy way of doing this. I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can see my screen now. If you can just quickly confirm.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So one
Yes.
good way I believe that we can do is that let's take some example. Okay. Let's take some kind of a data set, and then we try to do whatever we have learned doing with respect to statistics. Okay, we have seen some parts of the statistical areas like the 7-point summary, which we saw when we loaded a data as a data frame. We'll start from that once more. Quickly, we will touch on what is mean, median, mode, how to look at that. We already know the definitions. We don't have to debate. And then we can quickly move on to the probabilistic aspects. Like we can move into, let's say, probability density function and so on. Right. So let's call this notebook stats data analysis, and I'm going to give today's date. Okay. So now to do the data analysis, obviously, when we are going to do data analysis relevant to stats, there are certain things that I need. So first of all, I will need the libraries. So let's import the libraries. Okay. Again, a word of caution: it's not the right way to do things. I should have started with the markdown code, and I should have written down things related to what analysis I'm trying to do, and what exactly is that I would like to do here. Okay, that is not what I'm doing. Right, that is exactly not what I'm doing. What I'm doing instead is that I am directly starting with the code. This is not a best practice. I would strongly recommend please don't do this. Okay, now let's first try to import the things which we'll need. So prima facie, we will need a library to import the data, to import any data. So commonly, as we have already seen, we use the pandas library. So I'll use the pandas library. Sorry, I should have continued. Then I may need to do, or I may have to do mathematical calculation. So I need some library for quick maths, right? And for this, I know what I have to do. I'm going to import NumPy as NP, right? Then okay. The third is we will be looking at the data. So as we have already seen, looking only at the numbers is only going to confuse us. So we should have some visualization library. Okay, so I'll import matplotlib pyplot as PLT. I hope you do remember the libraries, right? Because these are the ones that we have already seen to some extent earlier. So and then last but not the least, let's also look into that visualization library, which is also good looking, right? The one which is a better version of matplotlib. So I'm going to say import cbond as SNS. Now, lastly, I need a good library to perform statistics. Okay, so this is where I'm going to introduce a new library to you, and that's called SciPy. Introduce SciPy as SC. Okay, or it can be called as SP as well. It's up to you, right? So these are mostly, or you can say the overall list of the libraries that we will need to do any statistical analysis. Now, the one which is at the end, right? This import SciPy. I don't know why it is taking so much of time, but then the one related to SciPy will be required only if I'm doing statistical tests. So when I come to a place like I'm going to do hypothesis testing, at that time we are going to use this library, or otherwise we won't be. Right? For the generic things, we do not need SciPy library. Even without SciPy, using pandas, using NumPy, we will be able to do a lot of things. Now, a good way to do the data analysis is that let's take a data set. Okay, the one which we would consider is a set of 150 observations, okay, done once upon a time for 3 types of iris flowers. Okay, I'm not sure if you have looked into this kind of a data, or maybe you have heard about this data. There's a flower Okay, maybe I can show that flower to you quickly because we should know a data that we are going to play around with. So let's see what is an iris flower. This is actually a flower, which is a type of a flower. But if you look at the diagrams, if you look at the photographs, you can see there are subtle differences in each and every flower. So somebody is calling this as a flower. In Wikipedia, it calls it a plant as well, right? And then you can see in this case there are leaves which are a little bit bigger. Here there are leaves with a big yellow box kind of a thing. Here there are leaves of that same iris flower which does not have anything like yellow. This is like something else. This looks like a kind of a decorative flower and so on. So it's quite clear that this flower may have types, and that's exactly what is the objective of me selecting this, because when this analysis was done, there are three types of iris flowers identified. Assess four factors, okay, or four properties. Okay, the properties are petal length, the second property is petal width, the third property is sepal length, and the fourth property is sepal width. Right now, what is petal and what is sepal? Can anybody tell us what is petal and what is sepal? If you don't know what is actually petal, it is something like this. In any matured flower, right, there will be a part which will be representative of the reproduction of the flower, in the sense that if you see this yellow part in this flower, this yellow part contains something inside it, right? It is a biological name for that. It is microsporangium. The microsporangium contained within this yellow part of the flower is going to help the flower reproduce, in the sense that these red dots kind of things are going to go out as they mature in the air, and they are going to give birth to other flowers. How? Here the honeybees and other trees or other uh, birds or insects who are going to eat the sac is going to come over here. They're going to take this along with them, and then the birds are going to do the plantation for us. We don't have to do any plantation, right? This is the part which is actually responsible for the reproduction. Okay, but this part is actually governed by this orange cover which you see over here. It's not very well mentioned here, but you can see that this slight interior thing, right? This interior thing is what is actually covering this reproductive organ. So this area is known as the petal or the corolla. Okay, this is what is actually protecting the very important part of the flower, or otherwise this will be the only flower left, right? It won't have any copies. Now, what is flower sepal? Okay, sepal is just the opposite. You see over here, this seems to be a good diagram, right? So this actually seems to be a very good diagram. See, the petal is which covered this yellow part or the middle part. The middle part is where we had the reproductive items. But the sepal is also part of the flower. It may or may not be of the same color as the flower, but it's actually guarding the petal. So it's below the petal and it is much more thinner or smaller in size, right? So that's the property. That's the difference between a flower's petal and sepal. Now, clearly, a petal is going to have a width and a length. In the same way, a sepal is going to have a length and a width. So this analysis or this data set, which was created or which was actually generated, is clearly basis this iris flower. And I can again go back to Wikipedia and I can try to call iris flower the data set. And in Wikipedia itself, you can read about this. I'm going to share this link with you. So it's done by a statistician named Fisher. Fisher has a very brilliant book on statistics, by the way. So he did the analysis of the iris flower basis the 4 types, okay, or the 4 aspects or the properties, right? And that's exactly what we are going to use. So we will do one thing. What we are going to do, we are going to find, or I have already found a URL. So we will use this data directly from its source and start performing statistical and exploratory analysis, right? In this way, we will revise all the concepts that we have learned. Right. So the idea is I'm going to import this data. I may want to download this data. This data is downloadable as well. So that's one way of doing it. But we have already seen that earlier. If you remember, when we started with this pandas library, right? We have already seen that. Right. So that's not what we are going to do. We are going to look at a different way of doing this. I have already copied the link from a place. Okay, and then let me just open that page. Let me see if this technique is going to work. So I'll say the data is downloadable from here, right? So this is the link. So if I go to this link, obviously I will be able to download the data. That's not what I want to do. What I would like to do, if this doesn't work, then I will use this. But ideal condition, I see it is going to work. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. There's something that I've missed. Basis the above features, the 3 types of iris flowers, 1 minute, are named as, now this name is not given by Fisher or the statisticians who have done the analysis, right? It's given by the biologists or the botanists. Okay. So the 3 types or the names of the 3 types of flowers which is given by the people is, one is the setosa type, the other type is going to be versicolor, and the third type is known as virginica, right? So setosa is one type, versicolor is one type, and virginica is another type. I think this will be I, right? So these are the 3 types of flowers or 3 types of iris flowers. Basis their petal length and width and the sepal length and width. Okay. I hope you have got the gist. If you want to study more, please go ahead and look into the Wikipedia page. I'm going to share that with you. Okay. But now let's import the data. So earlier what we have seen is we have taken pandas and we have got the CSV from somewhere. Here we are not going to download the CSV. Let's see if this is going to work. Okay. Let's say I want to create a data frame called iris. And simply put, I would like to PD read CSV and give this URL. Let's see if this works. If it does not work, I'm going to find some alternative, or maybe only for this time I can also download and try to read it as CSV. That's not exactly what I wanted to do. Let's see. If this works, then we are going to use it. If not, we will download. Okay, so essentially what I'm trying to show you now, I think it is giving a timeout. There's some problem, I believe. Okay. I think the function that I may have used is not the right one. So let's do one thing. Let's try to download this. Let's download this and let's come over here. Let's look into my folder and I'll just save it over here. As of now, maybe later on we'll see how to do the thing. So fine. I have now loaded the data set into a data frame called iris. How do I know it is a data frame? Just a quick recap. I do a type. If I simply type iris, it's going to print me all the data. Okay, but because there are 150 rows starting from 0 ending 149, it shows you a kind of trimmed output, right? Now, using this data, let's try to do the analysis quickly that we have already done in the past, right? So let's do iris.info, right? So clearly, it's going to tell me about the data set. There are 150 rows of 5 columns. We need to check what those 5 columns are. Obviously, 4 other columns will be petal length, petal width, sepal length, and sepal width. All of them have 150 rows. There is not even a single null entry. They're represented as a floating point column, really well structured data. And then the 5th column is the species, which is an object column. Now, as we have already seen earlier, object is also another representation of string column. So it's quite possible that the 5th field, as we can see over here, it's a string, right? The size of the RAM it's going to use is only somewhat around 6 KB, right? The second command, just to quickly recap, these are the columns which are there in the data set. Okay, there are 5 columns and I can clearly see what the names are. If I take a type of this is going to return me an index, right? But if I'm going to traverse through each and every item in this index, it's going to give me a list. The reason why I have clearly told you this is because using these indexes, we are going to select the data out of the data frame. We have already seen this earlier. Inside a data frame, I can give column names to select specific data. And also, we may want to do some kind of further analysis using looping functions, which we are going to do using the indexes or using a for loop throughout the indexes. Right. Now, another very important thing which we have seen earlier. Let's quickly try to run that and let's see how it goes. Iris.describe. Right, this gives you the 7-pointer summary. Right, count, mean, standard deviation, minimum, 25, 50, 75 max. Okay, why is this a 7-point summary? Is because count is something which I've already got from the info output, or you may already know beforehand. Before you are doing the analysis, you may already know what is going on over here, how many data you have, because usually you are the one who is going to collect the data. In this case, we are taking a dummy example. That's why somebody has uploaded the data into GitHub and we are simply downloading it. Right, but in the practical life, you are going to generate the data, you are going to analyze the data. That's why you will know how many rows are there. So you can skip the first output and then you can look at the rest. So there are 7 more. So that's why this is called a 7-point output or a 7-point statistics. So the description of the data set can be quickly summarized using these 7 types of statistics which you see over here. Starting with the mean, this is the average. Then I have the standard deviation. I don't see much of a standard deviation in any of the data except this. A quick thing to note, petal length has a very good amount of standard deviation. With a mean of 3.75, standard deviation of 1.76, this means the variation of the data when it comes to petal length is actually higher than what we see in the other cases. The least standard deviation is there in the sepal width. Followed by it will be petal width, followed by it will be sepal length, followed by petal length at the end. Right, this gives you a very, very good idea. Why? Because if you are going to tomorrow analyze this data or use this for doing, let's say, machine learning or any kind of inferential statistics, then you can quite easily say that the data with the minimal standard deviation is going to be more helpful for me as opposed to any data with higher standard deviation. Because if I have a standard or a good range in which my standard deviation falls, I can do my central limit theorem or any kind of hypothesis testing quite easily, because the structure of the graph pertaining to the distribution of that specific function or the specific feature is going to be very well structured. It's going to have least outliers, right? Then I have seen the minimum value. I can see the 25 percentile, the 50 percentile. So 50 percentile is otherwise known as the median. We have already seen that. Now, clearly here I can see mean is 5.84, median is 5.80. Clearly this is a normally distributed data. So sepal length, basis the sepal length, the iris flower is normally distributed. Okay, but when it comes to sepal width, is this also normally distributed? The answer is yes. In this case, see what is happening. It is 3.75 and 4.35. So it's really not a normally distributed. It's a bit on the I can say right skewed side, right? Why? Because mean is less than median, right? Then I have this one here. I have 1.19 closer to 1.2 and my median is 1.3. It's quite okay, not a very big kind of a difference, like 0.1 is not going to make much of a thing. So it's a good thing, right? Now the max value is this, right? Now looking at the 75 percentile and the max value, I can clearly see if there are any outliers in the data. So clearly there may be probabilities of petal length having an outlier. There is some probability of sepal length having an outlier because the distance of 75 percentile to max value in the sepal length field as compared to sepal width is higher, right? So here you see there is a difference of 3.3 to 4.4, which is 1.1. Here the difference is even smaller, 1.8 to 2.5, which is like 0.7. Here the difference is 6.4 to 7.9, which means the difference is something like 1.5, right? Even more of a difference is here, 5.1 to 6.9. So kind of 1.8. 1.8 value or 1.8 is the number, it's the absolute value in the same scale of that number. Right now, usually I'll have to check that. I'm not entirely sure. I believe these 4 length and width things are given into centimeters. And that is also a good thing to note. Yeah, but it is good to check the scale. I'll be honest, I have not really checked the scale in which the data is actually collected, but it's really good to check the scale. Okay, when you're doing the collection by yourself, you know what to do. But if it is actually provided by somebody else, you must always rely on the shape. Okay. Now let's see what is the distribution of the data. Now, before I start looking into the distribution of the data or anything related to statistics and probability, the descriptive part I've already seen. The first thing you do is you look at the balance of the data. Okay. Okay. So I'll say let's look at the balance of the data. Now, what is meant by balance? Okay. Balance is, in this case, I have 3 types of flowers. Okay. I have 3 types of iris flowers, right? I have 3 types of flowers. I would like to see what is the percentage of data available in my CSV file for each type of iris flower. This gives a good idea, not a great one though, on how overall my data is. Is it inclined to certain species as opposed to the other? It would be good to know, right? So what I'm simply trying to say over here is, let's try to look at the distribution. Let's try to look at the variation which we have in the overall data, not in a specific column. Let's see if the data is really provided to us in a nice way. So let's say if I have 150 columns, it is expected, and then there are 3 species, right? So clearly every species should have ideal condition 50. Okay, 50 rows per species should be there. Okay, so let's see how we can check that. A very easy way. We have already seen this example earlier when we looked into pandas. We can use value counts, right? So we can use value counts and do this value count, I believe. No. Oh, yes, of course. Value counts is going to work on only one value. Sorry, I have to take the species value. Clearly, I have a very good amount of, let's say, balance in this case. There are 2 reasons I wanted to show you this. First, it gives you a good idea about what kind of data you have in the data set. So we are simply exploring the data. This gives a very good idea. The second thing I wanted to tell you, because this data set is created by a statistician, that's why it meets a lot of normal distribution like features. Okay, it has a very good balance, it has a very good structure, it has comparable kind of a standard distribution. It does not have much outliers in the data, as you may have already noticed. In this output only, you can clearly see if there are many outliers. How do you find that out? Quickly, again, a quick recap. Look at the difference between mean and max. Look at the difference between the average and the max value. If it is too high, the average and the max value is too high, or the 75% value and the max value is too high as compared to the others, then this field or this column may have an outlier and not the other one. right? So in this case, clearly, we could understand that petal length might have outliers because it has the highest difference between 75% of the data and max value of the data, right? It also has the highest difference between the mean and the max value of the data. You see, mean is 3.75, max is closer to 7. So it's kind of closer to double, right? So it is quite possible. I'm not saying it will be there. It is quite possible that there is a presence of outliers, but then it's quite minimal. It's not really a very big problem right over here, right? Why in this case? The data is actually a toy data, right? This is like it's taken from the real world, but it is used to learn the data analysis. It's, by the way, a real data, but collected by a statistician, wanted to teach statistics. So that's why it has a lot of properties which are really good. This is not going to be the case when you look at actual real life things. If you look at any data set, irrespective of from where you are collecting that data, that is irrelevant. You look at any data set, part of your organization, part of your project, part of any work that you are doing day to day, this kind of a property will seldom be met. You are really, really lucky. I don't know whose face you have seen while actually getting up in the morning. You will not find this kind of a data. Okay, 99.9% of the time we will not find this kind of data. Okay, but in this case, we are lucky that we have found this, right? Now, let's try to continue. But as of now, again, we have started looking into, let's say, numbers. So let's not look much into numbers. So let's try to focus our visualization, or let's try to focus our exploration more towards or more using visualization methods. Okay, so let's start with very, very simple things. Let's first do one thing. Let me just insert 2 cells above because I would like to do something. Okay, the first part, this is going to be what? Part 1, data loading and basic analysis, right? I have only 10 minutes left, but let's see how much we can do today. So we have loaded the data. We have done some basic analysis. Let's call this part 2, basic visualization, right? So this is basic EDA that we are going to do. So part 1, we have loaded the data and done some basic analysis. Now we are doing basic visualization, right? Let's start. Let's start with 2D plots, right? One quick way of creating 2D plots, we have already seen that. Let's try to compare. Okay, so I simply can use matplotlib. That's one way of doing it. The other way that I'm going to show you now is to directly use pandas. I don't really remember if we have seen this or if we have done that when we were looking into the introduction to pandas, but let's do it now. So rather than using matplotlib, I can also do it directly using the data frame, which is something like iris dot, and then I simply say plot. Okay, I'm not going to define what kind of a plot it is by the name of the function, but I'm going to do it inside the function. So in the function call itself, I'm going to pass 3 parameters: kind, right? And then I'm going to say what is going to be my x and what is going to be my y, right? X is going to be what is the value on the x-axis, y is going to be what is going to be the value on the y-axis. I don't have to specify the data. Data is already specified over here. So let's say kind is going to be scatter. Okay, I have x and y, so I would like a scatter plot between some x and some y. So let's say my x is going to be, let's say the x is going to be sepal length and y is going to be I don't know, petal width, right? If I simply do that, I can see there is a plot, right? I can clearly see what is the relationship over here, if there is at all a relationship. Now this relationship is really important to understand. We have not looked into this as a calculated way. We are going to do that maybe in the next class because we won't have time right now. We are going to look at something which is known as causation and correlation. Now, we have already briefly touched earlier what is the primary difference between causation and correlation. Just because something is correlated to each other doesn't mean that it is a causation use case as well, right? We have seen an example where there was an increase of ice cream sales with an increase of the people who were eaten by sharks in the US, right? But that's not a causation use case. One does not cause the other, right? But there is clearly a correlation use case. Now, correlation can be of three types. Okay, clearly correlation can be of three types. Something we are going to look into in depth in next class maybe, but as of now, a data set can be positively correlated. Okay, or a data set with two columns can be negatively correlated, or a data set with two columns can be not correlated. Okay, or it is kind of a straight line. So a change in x in this case does not make any change in y. The value of y is a constant. You see, it is always here. As you increase or decrease it, x, it has no effect. But in this case, if you increase x, the value of y is actually decreasing. In this case, if you are increasing the value of x, the value of y is equivocally increasing. So this is called a positive correlation. This is called a negative correlation. And one of the names of this line is static correlation. There are other names as well. I would like to call it static correlation. There are other technical terms as well. But if you call this static correlation, it's easier for stakeholders to understand as well. Right? So that's why this word is really important. So if you look at this graph over here, let me change the color. So if you look at this graph over here, there may be a positive relationship, but there are cases which are falling quite far away from this line. This line is also known as, I may want to remember that we may have seen this earlier. This line is called BFL, or best fit line. This line clearly defines what is the relationship between y and x in form of a linear, in form of a straight line, right? But there are cases, in this case, as you can see, there are points over here which is not really matching. Okay, it is not really closer to this line. The more the lines are condensed towards this line, it's good. So then only we can say the best fit line is good. But in this case, it's not really good. So one of the ways to look at the correlation is to do a scatter plot. It's the basic thing which we do. I believe we have seen this earlier. The example over here is without using matplotlib, directly, okay, directly using the pandas data frame itself, I have actually done this. Okay, but there is a problem here. Okay, clearly there is a problem, and we are going to try and solve that problem. We have some time, and we will solve that problem. I don't know in these blue dots which dots belong to which species. And that's why this comparison in this context is not really helping me much. I can clearly see the relationship, right? But I can't say what is the effect on the species. Okay, let's try to do something. If let's say if that's going to work here. So I'm going to use a function which is called SNS dot facet grid. Okay, I think I've made a mistake. This will be capital. Okay, this is a visualization way, and it is really very useful. You will come to know why this is useful. Okay, just look at what I'm trying to do over here, and then you will come to know what this does. The first thing it takes as a parameter is the data set. Then I'm going to tell it the hue, which in this case is going to be species, which means when you create a facet grid or a diagram or a chart out of my iris data that is specified over here, use species as the hue, as the color, which means depending on the type or the category of species, choose a different color. So in this case, I have 3 species. If I would like to plot this, and that's exactly what I'm going to do over here, I'm going to plot these 2 variables, and then you will see that the different or 3 different species are going to come up in 3 different colors. And then I can also specify the size. Let's say I've given it a size of 4. This is just a relative kind of number. It's not really going to match it matter much, but let's see how it does. Now, facet grid is or a facet grid takes into account a function which is called map, and then I'm going to give it a function called add legend, right? Finally, I'm going to do a plt.show. Now, I would like to fill up the parameters which are there inside the map. There is no parameter inside add legend. Okay, so let's quickly try to run down what is going to be inside the map. Map is what operation I want inside the grid. In this case, I need a scatter plot, and I need a scatter plot of two variables. Okay, I know the two variables. Let's copy this and simply put it over here. These are the two variables I need to plot. If I simply run this, this is what I see as the output. Now, the relationship between sepal length and petal width is also basis the species, right? Now the differentiation is really, really useful. Really useful when sepal length is within the range of 0 to 6 and petal length is within the range of 0 to 0.6. I can clearly say the class or the species of the iris flower is represented by that of the blue color. Blue color is what? Setosa, right? But I cannot be 100% sure about a clear distinction basis petal width and sepal length when it comes to versicolor and the virginica flower. Why? Because as you can see over here, there's some overlap. These three green dots is causing a lot of problem for me. Then again, this green dot, and then again this orange dot. So they're not clearly separable. But I can say there's some kind of a thin line. I can draw the line which is something like this, or maybe this was not a good diagram. Maybe it's something like this. So this line may be a good fit. Why? Because in this case I have misclassified one point. Okay, 1 point of the versicolor flower and 4 points, 3 here and 1 here, 4 points of the virginica flower. It is not as good as this one. Setosa species is clearly a winner in this case. Petal width versus sepal length is a good way to clearly distinguish which flower is going to be a Setosa flower. I think we don't have time. Let's make a halt now. I'll stop sharing. I'll share you the code. Let's continue tomorrow. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night.
Thanks, Comet.
Thank you.